Two pocket bans in the last game of the Shen and the Hecarim coming in. And it will be the Rumble. I don't know if that is exactly super high priority considering Smeb's champion pool, but...
See, the thing is, Untara's champion pool doesn't hold up to the Rumble, so I think it's more... They don't really have an answer to that, but then... Because if you select Rumble on 6-11, you just pick Aurelia, and it's a skill matchup that Aurelia very often can win and itemizes more naturally against. Clearly, Untara doesn't feel confident in doing that. And I have to think this is going to be the game where Smeb brings back the Aurelia, which we have not seen since that losing Spring 2015 Grand Final against SK Telecom.
Indeed. So Kindred, the last bans, identical bans as the last game for the Tigers, which means that we're going to see, as you say, many of these power picks up again. CJ did ban Varus, Trundle, and Lucian on the red side in game number 1. Obviously, only one of those is going to be the selection here, and it's not even going to be that. It will be the Nidalee pickup. So now, ROX, do you take the Karma?
Rek'Sai.
Do you take the Rek'Sai, of course?
I think Rek'Sai for Peanut makes a lot of sense. It was very instrumental in the previous game when full tank was a frontliner. They will have Smeb on a carry. Someone needs to be a tank. It's not going to be Gorilla on Alistar anymore, so Rek'Sai is the jungler du jour at the moment, so I think taking it in first pick is a very safe option. No Rise to reach for in the first pick. Can you see an argument for anything? The Karma is an outside choice, but wow, they're actually going to pivot to the Trundle first pick.
That is a bit of a surprise. So here's what the Tigers are saying right now. You can only play tanks in Tara, so you have shown that you prioritize this Trundle. You banned it in game number 1. So what exactly are you going to pull out? The answer may be the Fiora. Untara did play it a lot in the spring season.
Fiora Gangplank, those were the carries that Untara showed any proficiency at in the past. So unless he has something new, it's worth noting that it might not even be a top lane Trundle this time around. Gorilla's been looking for a steadying tank support, and Gorilla was playing plenty of support Trundle, which, given the QSS changes, is still massively powerful on this patch.
Absolutely, just a bit of a reach there from the Tigers, and they're just happy to get that Rek'Sai up. They can play the Elise, certainly Peanut can, and it could just be the Karma and the Rek'Sai. Now, worth noting, the Karma and Rek'Sai both have about a 70% win rate right now in Korea. So they have been the big power picks, but they are going to take the Elise instead.
Yeah, Fiddlesticks flashes. Maybe in the future we'll see a Fiddle.
Flashes of Fiddle.
Flashes of Fiddle. Sounds like a play, a performance I would go watch. Flashes of Fiddle.
I wouldn't watch that. Sounds like a musical.
What if it's a concert piece? Flashes of Fiddle.
All right, I'd watch that one. Okay, I go to the symphony for that. All right.
Rek'Sai heavily expected to be the answering jungler.
Haru did look very comfortable on that Elise in the last game. And again, I thought Haru had good performances in both of the games so far.
I mean, it's kind of been night and day, his performance level today compared to the rest of the season. He's had decent games, but he's been top 2 performer on his team in some of the games today, which with BDD and Kramer putting in good performances is a pretty impressive thing to state. And if any team has played Jhin in the past, it is certainly ROX Tigers, and now we're going to see where Kramer will go with Jhin as a takeaway pick from ROX.
Well, they were the ones banning the Lucian in both of the games so far. They obviously have a very high priority on that pick. BDD can return to the Azir, which fell all the way through the draft in game number 2. So the Lucian, not prioritized at all by the Tigers. Tigers have just been slowly picking away at CJ's champion pool the deeper we go into this series, not allowing them to pick the Hecarim or the Shen, and now just taking away the Trundle and the Jhin. So see how CJ can actually respond, because this series in particular is showing us a lot about how deep CJ can go. Now, they did play Varus Lucian very well against Longzhu, so this combination we've seen them play aggressively with early. I like it.
But the thing is, they need a tank to be the frontliner for what is going to be a strong Siege and Poke duo, and they don't have access to a tank at full power. There is already a Trundle lock-in on the side of ROX, and if they do commit to the Nami pick, it will be Trundle top. See Kennen being hovered over. Always a treat to see Smeb play the Kennen.
Also, I just love the fact that ROX Tigers are one of the only very few teams in the world where that's a triple flex on this team. So it is always a joy to see them toy around with that pick. Gorilla Taking a look at the Nami right now for some good protection and peel on behalf of the Jin. But Thresh may be coming back too, and certainly Thresh against the low mobility Jin, a boon for getting him out of trouble.
What will the mid lane pick be if we are to see a different support than the Nami come through? Crow looked excellent on LeBlanc throughout the entirety of spring season, as Gorilla for some reason takes his headset off, but they will look to lock it in. Yep, it is going to be the LeBlanc this game, so a LeBlanc return. Definitely an interesting matchup because with the range advantage that you often have on this Varus, once you get to the level 7 through 9, you poke away at the LeBlanc and there's limited itemization you can go to answer the physical damage poke, because you don't really want to itemize early Zonias into a Varus, but you may have to.
So what is the solution to what is now known to be a top lane Trundle?
That Cleaver Gnar certainly would be some people's answers. Marin would probably be reaching for that if this was SKT in 2015. Laning phase, very comfortable. Range versus melee matchup. You can go you can build a Black Cleaver quite confidently now that the item's power level is higher than it's been in the spring season. Is a pick that Untara played, but wasn't necessarily super convincing on in spring.
Depending on his teleports too, he can set up plays for a possible great chain of corruption if he gets the Gnar ultimate.
It's a bit of a solo diver. There will be some semblance of AP on the Elise, but they do commit to the Gnar. I like Gnar when he has a secondary tank to initiate, and you could argue that Elise may be that champion, but very squishy backline and a very fickle frontline because Gnar is only situationally a true tank.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to itemize as a tank in this game, given the matchup into the Trundle. So we'll see how they can do. ROX Tigers, neither of these teams really built for team fighting at all. ROX has some great ways to make long-range picks with the combination of the LeBlanc and the Jin.
I just don't really know how the setup works for CJ. If you try to imagine the game being won for CJ outside of just crazy 5 kills in the early game or just a massive snowball in one of the lanes, CJ's setup with Gnar and Elise, their front line, seems pretty brittle to something like Prey opening up on the Jin to look for a poke, or potentially even just the Trundle Pillar coming towards the backside of the lineup when they're trying to kite back. So even though they don't have the most options, I feel like ROX, in many ways, has the answer to what is a fairly brittle poke comp from CJ.
I'm also just really worried about Untara because if he's itemizing damage, the LeBlanc is going to just absolutely wreck him on any kind of roams that he can do into the top lane.
I think it has to be Black Cleaver into Hex Drinker into situational, because he needs at least the Hex Drinker, and that's often not enough.
But then your Hex Drinker split pushing into a Trundle. Like, that's what I'm saying. The itemization is super rough here for the likes of CJ Entus, and it'll be a real test. If Untara can get way ahead, maybe they can make a 4-1 split work here, but that's about the only way. Well, we're going to get into game number 3, CJ versus ROX. Mountain Drake ruling the pit there, at least in a few minutes' time. But for now, it will be the ROX Tigers and CJ Entus battling here in game number 3 to determine who will take this series.
I think, honestly, the storylines that develop from this series are going to be twofold. Whichever way it goes is going to be a massive storyline. Of course, the Tigers will be the slump after once again coming so close in the spring season, dominating the regular season, and then losing fairly one-sidedly to SK Telecom in the final. Or it will be the rise of CJ, because they beat Longzhu. That looked like just a nothing result just 2 series ago for them. But taking down the Tigers would be a massive scalp for a team that looked, after a couple of games this season and with the lineup they have, to be one of the real teams we expected to be in the relegation places.
Yeah, well, at least CJ has been slowly improving. I think that's what we can say about them is, yes, they had a rough start, but they took the win against Longzhu. Some of the games were convincing. Game 1 here, they played very well around the Shen and Hecarim.
They definitely had a new plan and executed it super well, so go back and watch the VOD of Game 1 if you missed it, because it was something different that I think teams will try to ape. We see some global fans. Some love from them too.
We also love global fans.
It was nice to see. Plenty of CJ and ROX Tigers fans here at Sangam East Stadium. Again, the mid lane matchup is one that kind of goes dramatically one way or the other. And look at BDD's aggression here, just walking past the caster minions.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty hard punished for that.
He has the summoner spell advantage, it's worth noting. Heal versus teleport in the mid lane.
He's playing that one out. He will get a little bit of extra gold there from killing the clone.
Corrupting Potion versus the 2 pots means the sustain advantage should be slightly at his advantage too, so I like the aggression from BDD in that particular scenario. It's got the mindset of a carry, and that's something that CJ lacked for the games where they had to run Sky in the mid lane last season.
Mad Life, though, eating a bubble there from Gorilla. Gorilla has been really struggling with his mechanics in this series. He's missed quite a few skill shots on the Thresh, and they're actually going to come in early. Oh no, the flash from Peanut answered by 2 summoner spells from BDD, but ROX Tigers do take a summoner spell advantage as they go for that 3-minute gank once again on Peanut.
Still have to say it's a big success. You'll trade it. It always sucks to lose your flash on Rex side because the champion will find it very hard to influence a lane for the next 5 minutes, but in a swingy mid lane matchup, Kuro having a flash advantage, so having a summon spell advantage, even though he didn't take a combat summoner compared to the 2 combat summoners from BDD, will actually be massive in giving lane control to LeBlanc.
Yeah, this has been a very dominant laning phase from Prey and Gorilla so far. Harassing Kramer and Mad Life pretty mercilessly.
Oh boy.
Ooh, Haru.
Oh, if he flashes, he's got...
Oh! Fast fingers. TP coming in though. Kuro still underneath the turret. He's not going to die. Yes, he will eventually. Haru actually finishes him off with an auto attack, but there's an advantage for Smeb in the top lane. Smeb so very ready to make that play. Kuro just barely dying.
And he also had the lane pressure in, but somehow as a Trundle to be able to make that teleport and not even lose CS. You see Nara was under turret. Very curious that a Doran Shield Trundle was able to outpush Untara on this Nara. Maybe that's just overly safe play from Untara, which sadly is what we've come to expect. He is known to not really try and apply pressure in lanes, will often play the reactionary tank pick, the Maokais of the world, compared to Smeb, who, irrespective of champion, is always looking for lane pressure.
Yeah, even though they dive, man, really no CS lost there from the ROX Tigers, thanks to the help of the teleport from Kuro, getting him immediately back into that lane. So still had that other summoner up, and because Smeb had it pushed so far up, he's just going to meet the wave and take all of the farm from it. Tigers doing some work here, and getting the Trundle ahead is absolutely huge for them.
Now wards and jungle pathing will have so much more reward because BDD, Kuro, Haru, and Peanut have no flash, so any 2v2 skirmishes will be explosive because it's not those answering escape summoners.
Man, Untara just TP'd down into the bottom lane again, too. He's trying to just put the pressure on, but now he's pretty far forward. Peanut gonna drift through the wards, and here comes Untara, and not gonna land the knock-up. Killer not in the best position there to stop Untara just from bouncing out.
It's actually really awkward for Nash, specifically against Rek'Sai, because you want to bounce over the enemy champion to safety, but that will just lead to you being knocked up.
Yeah, very true.
So it doesn't have those creative escapes. That's why he just went for, you know, a 200 unit hop to the right. It's the only option he had.
Well, no TP advantage now because of that TP into the bottom lane for Untara. They didn't actually use it for any kind of answering gank play.
His first sighting of a Lucian on 6-11. Seen plenty of Lucian bans, surprisingly, as Haru walks up. So the Lucian, the big change is the range on his Q means that you can be a bit more aggressive while you're standing around the caster minions because you won't be clipped by the 1100 range of that Q anymore. Losing 200 units doesn't sound like a massive amount, but in reality, you just take a lot less trade damage from the Piercing Light, which also had its AD ratio nerfed. So in general, more forgiving a laning phase against the most oppressive laning AD carry of recent times.
Yeah, doesn't change his power spike with the Yomus and the Black Cleaver, though, so he's still going to hit like a truck.
Especially this game, where guess who's going to profit? Good old Varus in the mid lane. Love the Black Cleaver shred that's going to come through, and there's really nice synergy between those two.
Yeah, I talked about it a lot tonight, but that synergy was what won CJ the game when they played against Longzhu. and they looked really decisive. They set up early sieges with a couple of Youmuu's Ghost Blades, and they had that early armor penetration made a big advantage out of it. So they've got to do it again here today, but stopping this Trundle is going to be problematic at this stage. Haru and Madlife really want to get this kill.
No flash on Haru. Flash tether might have to open this. Nope, they're going to go for it anyway.
Bubble onto Haru. Madlife looking for the tether, breaking to get under the turret. Does end up flashing on the other side of the tether. Very safe. Peanut comes to the mid lane. They're going to punish BDD. Heals back up, but that's it. And that is going to be a kill for Kuro. Sigil for the finisher.
Flash available and basically comes straight after that summoner's available to get the kill. Very nice onto BDD, who had just healed. Look at his flash timer. Literally 5 to 10 seconds away when that engagement starts. Some very, very clean shot calling. They had the exact timer on that, and they profited.
Yeah, right place too, knowing where Haru was and still making that call with a very limited time window. ROX trying to translate this further into a blue buff. Peanut takes it away, so no roam over from Kuro, who will get a recall instead and then head over to their blue buff.
So with the recent mana, I guess I say recent, but with the long-term mana cost buffs that many mid laners have seen, in general mana costs have gone down over the time as Prey won't quite fall.
Wow, Madlife flashed for that one, and he's going to take a few curtain call
Teleport.
shots at hello teleport. Here comes Smeb, and he's going to just wall him off right there with the help of the pillar. Kramer has to flash. Smeb going hard. Auto will get the kill. Madlife, no mana, exhausted. Double kill for Smeb.
And that's what happens when you go for those aggressive flashes, Monte Cristo, is that there's so much room to punish. Once again, Smeb has exactly the right teleport timer. Untara still doesn't have his teleport from trying to teleport backlane to get pressure. And literally, the difference between these teleports is what is really contributing. The summoner spell usage difference between CJ and ROX has literally dictated the first 10 minutes.
I mentioned that teleport from Untara because he could have just walked back into lane. There's no excuse for doing that. He was just getting super greedy to apply pressure, but he was always going to have that teleport window where Smeb had his up first again. He used it, didn't get anything, and to Peanut's credit, he was down there. Let's take a look at this one.
You can't go for that aggressive engage if you're Madlife. You understand why Kramer was level 6, but the answer is the teleport. And we talked about flash timing in the mid lane. BDD almost had it up. Teleport timer in this gank, the Untara almost had it up and almost translating into big gold. And guess who's picking it up? Good old Smeb.
Yeah, absolute disaster here for the likes of CJ Entis. The picks are going to be super powerful now. If LeBlanc ever comes into this lane with Smeb, Peanut's not done. Double knock-up. TP coming back in. Here comes LeBlanc. Madlife very low, gets smashed by Smeb for his 4th kill. Kuro also here tags him with the sigil, does bounce back with the distortion as Untara arrives. But again, super greedy play from the duo lane of CJ Entis. And they had no summoner spells. They had no right making that.
Yeah, this is CJ capitulating under the lights here in the 3rd game of the series. A big gold lead of 2,600, 10 minutes in. But again, the difference between the teams, there's many teams that aren't assertive where 10 to 20 second windows aren't translated into objectives. But the kills have been the main objective for CJ Entis, and they're racking up, again, almost exclusively on Smeb, who has a casually massive gold lead, despite the 9 CS hole he's in against Untara.
Oh no, 9 CS.
4 kills turns out a little bit stronger than 9 CS.
Gets smacked around into a wall right there, but he doesn't care as he just goes in onto a full HP. Untara does use the subjugate. Gorilla there to back him up in case Untara decided he wanted to take that fight. Wisely decides that may not be the best idea, but they do commit 3 people to the top side of the map now, and it's going to be a fast-pushing game here from the likes of the Tigers.
It's definitely what you want to do. Keep pushing on the advantages you have. End the game early. LeBlanc will be able to set up a 1-3-1 that'll be so hard for CJ to manage because Untara will not be able to itemize in a way to answer both Trundle and LeBlanc on a budget if he's going to be going damage especially, which seems to be likely from the Phage and Ruby Crystal. So this is definitely the phase where Untara, there's no itemization that won't be exploited by ROX.
I think you just have to go tank and try and turret dive right now with the Lucian and the Varus because there's no way you're going to stop the split push and your damage itemization is going to be useless. So I think you just got to go tank and then try and force some 5v5s, set up a chain of corruption, and try and play around the armor pen power spike, excuse me, that you have in the Lucian and the Varus. Otherwise, all is kind of lost.
But with Gnar and then this Varus-Lucian duo, it's so execution-heavy. There's so many different things you have to consider as Rek'Sai's looking for a flank.
And there, Bad Life going to get rooted in the end. Tidal Wave going to roll on through. Curtain Call takes 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Right onto VDD. VDD forces the flash after getting hit by that final shot. Mid lane turret will stand for the ROX Tigers as they bounce back.
But yeah, the coordination between, as you said, BDD and Kramer was there on this duo, but when you add in having to have the Nava at the right part, the situational tank looking for turret dives, double teleport, meaning there's a lot of reactionary options for ROX Tigers, I think the trivialization of Untara, self-inflicted at the start of this game, is only going to be amplified by the item hole he finds himself in compared to Smeb.
Yeah. Gotta agree. Wrong pick and wrong use of teleport. No real answers here for CJ.
1,000 gold plus already.
Yeah. And as we talk about this, at least CJ got the Mountain Drake. We didn't touch on that. That actually is important to their composition with the Varus and the Lucian together. So there's a very small chance that that might help turn this game around with some proper sieging, but it's a long shot.
I mean, the proper sieging is going to come early in the game because ROX will continue to accelerate the pace, rotate people to take the standing gold of turrets and try to ensure that there's never a time 25 minutes in where power spikes are hit by Kramer as Smeb's looking for a fight again.
Well, he does have the Rift Herald buff too, which sort of adds insult to injury to Untara. Yeah, he's going to get some of those hyper procs off, but not really too helpful.
This isn't the carry Smeb I expected, but I accept it nonetheless.
I accept it. We all accept you, Smeb. We love you. Wonderful top laner.
The Fizz, though. Oh, boy.
Hey, he's moved beyond that now.
He's evolved to Trundle duties.
It's right. And now Fizz has been heavily hit with the Nerf bat, so on 6.11.
Yeah, 6.12 actually. So.
Oh, 6.12, yes.
I think both patches actually from memory, but 6.12 I think
yeah,
the big ones come through.
6.12. This is why I shouldn't read patch notes before the matches, because I read those today and I almost never do that. But yes, I was looking at those Fizz changes. I was like, oh, goodbye, sweet Fizz.
I mean, even mid lane Fizz having 2 seconds extra cooldown on Faithful Trickster is massive for the windows to counterplay between Zonias and that Playful Trickster. But that's of course a discussion for a future patch.
We can talk about it now. Nothing.
We can talk about whatever we want right now because
we're in control, Papa Smithy.
Well, CJ Enters also definitely not in control. They're kind of at the whim of Smeb and ROX Tigers. They wanted to play this comp from ahead, but people drafting comps that are conditional against teams like SKT especially, but increasingly the ROX Tigers playing themselves into form as BDD.
Well, miss on the chains, but here comes the Tidal Wave. Gets the knockup on the Haru. Kuro going hard. BDD's Hex Drinker will not save him. And there's Haru popping over with the repel, but the finisher, Prey Seeker, after we see Prey seek prey of his own with the root. And that's going to be a mid lane turret.
Smoothly navigated there with your play-by-play Monte Cristo, and ROX going to keep going.
And there's another root actually bubble. The chain CC's not going to stop. Prey will flash forward to help finish the kill. Lucian on the run, Smeb on the flank, subjugate onto the Lucian. Not sure that's really going to help, but it will zone him out enough to take the tier 2 turret as ROX just bulldozes down the mid lane.
As I alluded to before, accelerating the pace really helps. There's no time to hit the item spikes and then set up, because by the time they hit both those things, they will be so far in the hole in terms of gold. There's just nowhere to go. Once you open up with the Jhin ultimate, there's this massive zone that forces the aggressive flash from BDD, who gets a lot of trade damage, but just can't do it quite against the passive. Haru falls as well, and 2 turrets, multiple kills. It's all stacking up for the ROX Tigers.
Yeah, keeps going too. Smeb just runs through the jungle after pushing up his wave, seeing what else they can get. Mad Life rooted by the chains, and that gets him caught out by Jhin straight into a bubble. Gorilla hitting a lot of skill shots right there, looking much better in this game than he has in the previous 2.
Nami certainly seems to be the pick for him. Tara still is not to complete a full item at 16 minutes. Titanic Hydra and Ninja Tabi, the completions for Smeb. First sighting of the Ninja Tabi. So a slight buff on patch 6.11. Now 2% less damage from auto attacks. Was always a really big pickup against the Nard, because so much of his damage is related to his auto attacks. Yeah, it's just the item timings. Right? We're thinking of the 2-item Lucian specifically, and then the Mana Moon into Muramana on the Varus. By the time that comes in, Jin's already well on the way to a 2nd item. Kuro, if he gets to pick up Zonia's, actually will have to do a 3rd item. It's probably just going to be something like the Luden's Echo from the LeBlanc for even more burst. It's going to be 2.5 items versus 2 items, and that's where, unfortunately, CJ may have already missed the timing they clearly drafted for.
Yeah, just no armor pen either on the side of the Varus. So, rough stuff. Magic resist with that Maw Malmortius more of the priority here.
I mean, 10 armor pen from the Dirk that builds into it, but it's clearly not what they're going for. If this is a game where Black Cleaver Gnar, more Malmortius, and just some more armor pen on the side of Varus, and again, a very fast 2nd item Black Cleaver at 20-21 minutes. CJ can certainly win in that scenario, but that scenario is already passed, and it's definitely going to be slow item timings compared to accelerated ones, and it's going to be the 4th turret of the game to ROX Tigers.
Relentless pressure from ROX coming in.
And what does Gnar do from behind Monte Cristo? That's kind of one of the reasons he's fallen away, is that when he could wail away on many melee top laners, was very powerful. But in a scenario like this, just now finishing the Frozen Mallet, which is the 1st item choice, not really the tank stats he needs. Was always a decent choice on Gnar because he gets resists from his ultimate. May not get to pop his ult though.
Credit to the Tigers though. We didn't know about this top lane Trundle, but they seem to have a very good grasp over Untara's champion pool, and there was just nothing left. Defense here onto the blue buff mounted by CJ Entis, but they have to walk
teleport
into this curtain call. Peanut is hit by the Chain of Corruption, but he does get through the tunnel.
They kite up very smartly. Gnar gets nothing from the teleport. Of course, doesn't have the home guard buff, only had 50% rage that now starts to go away. They also take the top lane turret.
Wow, I mean, really, they can keep going right here. The ROX Tigers can if they want to, considering there's so much of an investment onto this Mountain Drake by the likes of CJ Entis. Getting low, Peanut gonna come in, try and smite it away, he gets it too! Salt in the wound here for CJ Entis, and now here comes the TPs on the side of the ROX Tigers. Flash up onto Kramer there with the knockup. Untara doing what he can on Prey. BDD looks like he may be able to get this kill. Peanut has to double back right now. They want to finish off Gorilla. Piercing arrow does miss. Flash forward, double kill for Untara. Gets him back in this game. And look at all the flashing red bars on CJ Entis. Still no kills. Finally, Kuro will help secure one. But that is a poor trade there for the ROX Tigers, who could have just kept pushing in that situation.
Yeah, they eventually committed to fight, and it didn't help them out. 2 kills for 1, no other objective. And crucially, Tigers, Peanut picks up the dragon without even having to smite it, just from the AoE from an auto attack and the Q. 2nd Mountain Drake and a teamfight victory, and CJ would have had a narrow window, but while the window isn't closed, it's certainly ajar from the perspective of CJ.
Slightly ajar, just a little bit of breeze coming through, that's about
Exactly.
it. It's about to slam.
You're looking at it and you're like, I feel a breeze, but it looks closed. Weird.
Take a look at this. Peanut just waltzing in.
Early smite, and then, yep, just auto attacks it.
Well, Peanut decided not to use the smite right there. And TP's, his first knockup onto Kramer was good, but he somehow manages to actually escape this
The
one.
Untara actual play onto the wall was actually massive in this case. He didn't even stack his CC. Had the W left, Prey was chain CC'd for a good 3 seconds. They have to flash to get the finalized kill, and ends up just being a 2-for-1, but better than expected for CJ Entis.
Pretty big commitment there too, and they did, Prey and Gorilla did just walk into the choke point against the Gnar in Mega Gnar form, so sloppy positioning.
Tara's stunned up.
And here comes the curtain call. He's trapped against that pillar, and that is not going to be it. He escapes. Smeb checked his auto attack, looked like there. Didn't want to commit through that choke point, so Untara gets away with one this time. Brayseeker
Was at 73 health. It probably would have been the kill with just a simple long-range Brayseeker. CJ camping their red buff, realizing there are no free lunches when you're this far behind, and the ROX Tigers are in a good spot to take down the series. It's been a uphill battle for them because CJ did play extremely well in Game 1, but it does feel a bit like when Samsung was having their big victories last season. 2 seasons ago in summer, where they'd have one strategy, you'd ban away the key picks, and then they'd really not have that extended pool of strategies to be able to take down many best of 3s.
They're going to go for this one. Nope, just clearing out the ward in the pit. Can't get the ward on the other side. Baron is aggro. Put some damage down on the Peanut and Gorilla.
The Baron damage is actually pretty poor. Jin doesn't take Baron very fast because of his auto attack and the fact that he has to reload after the 4th bullet. And LeBlanc also not the biggest help. So Baron only going to really be an objective after a teamfight wipe of CJ Entus.
And Tara actually going for the Hammer Time build. Frozen Mallet, Phage, and Warhammer.
So this build can situationally work. One thing I didn't get to is that Frozen Mallet gives you a lot of health, and Gnar gets resist in Mega Gnar form. So again, if everything lines up perfectly, you teleport, just about to teleport, but just about to turn into Mega Gnar, get that massive initiation, apply the armor penetration of the Black Cleaver, and then you rain hell from BDD and Kramer on this Varus Lucian. It could happen, but how many times will that happen? And with flashes up, you'd have to think not that often for ROX Tigers.
Yeah, realistically, too, he's going to have trouble kiting even in the 1v1, which is where we used to see this Frozen Mallet build on the Gnar. But with the Iceborne Gauntlet on Smeb, combined with the Pillar, going to be lucky to actually be able to use the Frozen Mallet to its fullest efficiency. And Atara is just going to get caught out and destroyed. Gorilla there with the kill. Kramer gets a nice crit on that last shot of the Curtain Call. And there's the flash. Kuro committing to that one. Gets BDD with the chain too. Beautiful LeBlanc play. Switching targets at exactly the right time. And there's 2 kills, 3 kills actually over to the ROX Tigers as they turn their sights onto the Baron.
If there's anything we could ever fully confirm for the ROX Tigers, this team knows how to play from ahead. They've struggled in the early game, made some mistakes. Peanut's jungle pathing has been a bit tricky and they've lost out, but from ahead they've looked clinical. And this seems to be just another one to add to that list.
Yeah, more poke, and Kuro just dealing a huge amount of damage. Madlife trying to keep him alive. Haru comes down, wants to go for the execute. Can't quite get it. Ignite onto Kuro, but that's not going to finish him off either as Gorilla and Peanut play chase the Karma around the jungle. Madlife does stay alive, but can't do anything about the Baron.
And Prey has gone for another manly build, Dusk Blade of Drekthar.
We've actually been seeing this more on Jim. We haven't talked about this, but the Yomus into Duskblade has been increasingly popular, especially in Korean solo queue.
So Arrow has been building the Yomu's Ghostblade exclusively when he's been playing the Jhin, but has pivoted to other team fight items, like, for example, the more Malmortius. Duskblade is always aggression to the nth degree, but it certainly worked for Winged on the Graves yesterday, and opening up with the salvo of damage with this Yomu's Duskblade duo is going to be impressive stuff to watch.
Now here come the ROX Tigers. Trying to crack the base, and one bullet goes shy. Haru eats another one, but the shield from the Karma absorbs most of the dangerous shots. The turret not going to survive. They did have to back off from the pressure that Prey was putting on. And there you go. Madlife just gets deleted in that front line. Tidal Wave rolls on past, not going to find a kill, but Prey with the flash forward to finish off BDD. Peanut running low, but there's not enough damage there to actually kill him. So they can set their sights on the inhibitor and finalize that objective kill instead.
An inhibitor and 2 kills while Kuro was not involved, wasn't even there, didn't have teleport either. And such is the advantage of the Tigers that they don't even need their mid laner, who has 5 kills this game.
Must be nice. They have put together a 15,000 gold lead at 25 minutes, so this game has been a pretty dominant showing here. And they are going to go for the Cloud Drake in the end.
Take it down. There will be another Dragon Spawn. Lots happened this game, but it's still very much early days. 18 kills at 25 minutes. A faster pace than we've come to expect in LCK. But CJ really don't have access to many resources on the map. They have to be so shallow in their farming. BDD sniping minions away from a screen away. And ROX just looking for an avenue to end the game.
We're not used to seeing this many kills, but CJ also, it really is on them. They made so many openings for Smeb's TPs in this early game, and they were just absolutely punished by the teleport play from the ROX Tigers, not respecting it at all.
It was one team mismanaging their summoners, and the other team maximizing the use of their summoners and the timings they had on the enemy summoners. So it was one team playing poorly, the other team playing well, which is definitely the preferred scenario.
And that's why you always take summoner timers, kids. You always take them. You write them down and you remember them. And Madlife wished he remembered a few more summoners as he takes a giant chunk from Kuro. That's going to be it for the top lane. ROX got one more to go as the minion wave slowly pushes up towards their final inhibitor objective. Baron buff still going strong.
The final inhibitor, another poke.
Uh-oh, Kuro actually caught by the Chain of Corruption right there, and he's going to die to the Gnar. But we see Peanut already in the mix. Meb just hammering away with his clubs, and he'll be clubbing 3 people to death for that triple kill. As now the game will end as ROX Tigers head on to the Nexus turrets here, 27 minutes in, and a victory in game number 3 as we close out our first best of 3 of the night. Nice little turret dive there, or fountain dive rather. Peanut will return to the other side of the Nexus with his ultimate, and that is it. ROX Tigers take down CJ 2-1.
And Kuro dying first in the fight might have been a source of surprise, but remember, he wasn't needed in the previous fight. They don't need no LeBlanc to finish this game, and ROX Tigers, they make a confident re-entrance into the series that honestly, CJ looked